The terrifying potential of a magical unguent was found by two daring outlaws in a rock-bound fortress high in the Carpathian Mountains. The bandit Dobos served as defender for the helpless and underprivileged inhabitants in the highlands of Hungary. He oversaw a group of men who dared to oppose the tyrannical Magyar lords. He and his troops were residing in a mountain redoubt when they heard banging one evening. A sleek-haired man with all-black clothing, who introduced himself as an emissary of the greatest lord in the area, met him as he opened the door. After many years of conflict and suffering, Voyevod desired to make peace with Dobos. That evening, he was hosting a grand ball at his castle and hoped the outlaw would be a special guest. Any other man would have been wary of a trap and denied the invitation, but Dobos was reckless and decided to go with his reliable friend, Ivan Suk. The men entered the waiting coach, the emissary, and set off, while donning the plumed hats that served as their sole form of finery. They eventually arrived at the castle, which was set on a lofty peak. As Dobos ascended the stairs, a military band played trumpets and drums. He entered a ballroom, was lit by candles, as a number of doors swung wide. Lackeys swarmed about the outlaws, bowing and grinning in a manner reminiscent of the voyevod's emissary with his black frock coat. Dobos pushed aside and sat down with the visitors. Despite being lavishly dressed in silks and jewels, he thought they were a sickly-looking collection. None of them were taller than the bandits' shoulders. They were all pale and frail and posed stiffly next to their wives. When he spoke to them, they responded courteously, even modestly. But there was no laughter or chatter in the room, and Dobos was beginning to lose hope that would be any fun when the envoy sprinted up to him. The voyevod's towering stature followed behind. Both the guests and the lackeys stood in silence as he bowed to the outlaw. Ivan Suk had the impression that a show was about to start, and when the nobleman spoke, it was hard to tell that the words were even his. He said he hoped Dobos would feel at home in the castle, while cautiously casting an anxious glance at his emissary. Voyevod said, "Not just for tonight, but for all eternity," as the bandit nodded in appreciation. He presented Dobos with a golden keyring. In perplexity, Dobos and Ivan Suk exchanged glances. When he saw their disbelief, the voyevod responded, "I have no heirs. Dobos is renowned as an honorable man. To claim the castle, he simply had to accept the keys." Dobos surveyed the ballroom's smooth floor, which reflected the brilliant chandeliers and the lofty windows that curved towards the frescoed ceiling. This could never be a warrior's stronghold or a common man's house. Once more he looked at Voyevod. He replied the honor was too big for him. If the Voyevod decided to renounce his castle, let it be transformed into a cathedral for all people, consecrated to God's glory. The entire group of aristocrats, servants, and musicians appeared to droop as Dobos' final words resounded throughout the space. The Voyevod swayed and hit the ground. The lackeys sank to their knees with their tongues hanging out. Ivan Suk maintained his focus on the staff, while Dobos bowed to assist his host. They were stumbling or crawling around the room toward a burnished font, where they scooped out dollops of an oily balm and applied it to their eyes. They immediately got back to their feet and carried on with their work. The envoy anointed the eyes of his stricken lord, who sat up with new strength. Ivan Suk put one finger in the unguent while slipping away unnoticed towards the font in the midst of the chaos. As soon as he applied the liquid to his right eyelid, the space around him instantly dissipated. Up until he put a hand over his other eye, the dizzying sea of shapes, colors, and sounds rushed over him. Afterwards, everything stopped. The night wind's shrill howl, the only sound. Ivan Suk suddenly found himself in the ruins of a castle that had been illuminated by the moon. Bare skeletons of trees that were growing through the broken flooring swung in the wind. A group of sleek black dogs with lolling tongues was creeping around the crumbled stonework. The bandit drew back in horror as he realized, as he peered over one of the damaged walls, that the ruin was spinning over the cliffs. This was the Devil's Palace, which all men who revered God knew to be located close to the peak of the mountain known as Pietros. The lackeys at this magnificent ball were the dogs of hell, and the guests at the ball were the cursed trees swaying the unnatural wind. Ivanchuk blinked nervously before opening his left eye. The ballroom sparkled with candlelight once more. Ivanchuk hastened to the aid of his friend. The voyevode was pleading with Dobos to think again. If Dobos accepted the keys that the Prince of Darkness himself was offering, Ivanchuk understood that he would sacrifice his soul to the flames. He said in a hushed voice to Dobos that they needed to get out of the Hall of Great Evil. The chieftain believed his buddy, even though he could see no danger in these drab aristocrats. Moving cautiously, they approached the door. The lackeys moved in on him, their black hair bristling and their smiles turning into snarls. "God keep you all!" Ivanchuk shouted. The lackeys retreated and began to crawl again toward the font as soon as they heard the holy words. The criminals fled into the night, jumping boulders to reach the shelter of the forest. Ivanchuk informed Dobos of the truth regarding the castle before they fled into the forest in agony. Ivanchuk bathed his right eye in every stream they crossed on the arduous ride home. Even the first crystal-clear mountain pool they came upon, however, the unguent that gave both the ability to maintain deception and the ability to see through it remained even after the washings. After that, he merely needed to close one eye to catch a glimpse of the devil blending into the crowd or hiding in a corner. Ivanchuk, who was naturally cautious, was increasingly so as he carefully navigated through the infernal mayhem that only he could see.